Hi everyone, this is William from the Headphone Experience, and I'm here with something a little bit different than any of the videos I've done before. This is sort of a long-term update. This is 1 year with the Audio GD Master 9 and R-8 MKII DAC stack. And you can see those two units up in the corner behind me. They'd be right up there with the blue lights. And the Master 9 I've had for about almost 4 years now, but the R8 MKII, which is an R2R DAC, I've only had for about 1 year, but I've been using the two together as a stack for that 1 year. And I never did do, I did reviews of both of those units, but never the two combined as a stack. So I thought I'd throw together a little video tonight which will tell you what my experience has been over the last year using those two units as a stack. I'll start out with the Master 9. I bought that almost 4 years ago, and that was very early in my reviewing days, and what I was looking for was a amp that I could use as a reference amp to review pretty much any headphone that came my way. So I needed something that was very versatile, something that would work with just about any headphone, something with enough power to drive hard to drive planar magnetic headphones, but something that I could also use with everything down to, you know, super sensitive dynamic driver headphones and even IEMs. I also wanted something with a lot of connections, a lot of hookups, both inputs, outputs, and because I also plan to use this amp as a reference to compare other amps to in the future. Like I said, I'd only been reviewing a few months at that time. So I ended up buying the Master 9 on basically on reviews that I had seen at that point. I had seen a couple of written reviews that really did like the Master 9, and one of my favorite reviewers, Amos Barnett, did a review of the Master 9 back then, and he really liked it, so I decided to go with it, and I've had no regrets. I've been very happy with it, and I've compared it to a lot of other amps since that time, and I'll give you the list in a few minutes of amps, and I'm not going to go through and try to tell you how it compared to each amp, because that would make this a 2-hour video, and I don't want to do that. So I'll give you a list of the amps, and I'll mention a few of those that compared to the Master 9 pretty favorably, or, you know, maybe even beat it in some ways. But and also the DAC, the R8 MKII, which is pretty much, you know, a match set. You know, Audio GD sells different amps, they sell different DACs, they sell amp DAC combinations, but in my opinion, the R8 MKII is a real good match for the Master 9 amp. So anyway, that was loaned to me about a year ago, and I decided I really liked it, so I'm in the process of buying it, you know, so I can hang on to it and keep it as a reference. And I have been very happy with the two. So far, both of them have held up very well against anything I've compared them to. And, you know, and overall, they've been, you know, my choice of what I wanted to hang on to and use as a reference. So, start out with the Master 9. One of the main reasons I chose that amp and continue to use it as my reference amp is because of how versatile it is. And the first part of that is the fact that it has 5 sets of inputs. And I'm not aware of any other amp or nothing I've reviewed so far that does have that many inputs. It has 2 sets of RCA single-ended inputs, 2 sets of XLR balanced input, and 1 ACSS input, which is, most companies don't use that. It's a sort of a mini 3-pin XLR connection. It looks similar to your full-size XLR connections, but it's smaller and you have to use a different cable. but Audio GD uses that with all of their equipment they make, and you can connect them together using that. And Audio GD claims a better overall sound using the AC/SS connections, and I'm not going to go into that right now and try to explain how exactly that works, but I have been using the AC/SS connection between the R8 and the Master 9 for the last year, and I do think it sounds a little bit better than using the standard XLR balanced connections. Another reason for the Master 9 is 3 headphone outputs, a 6.3 millimeter single-ended, 4-pin XLR balanced, and dual 3-pin XLR balanced, and then it also has 3 sets of preamp outputs. One would be RCA and the other 2 would be XLR. And the Master 9 also has 2 gain settings, and they're pretty far apart. One, on high gain, the Master 9 is capable of putting out, I believe, 9 watts per channel into, I think, 40 ohms. It has a lot of power. I've never run short of power with any headphone. I mean, not even close. And on low gain, it has a very low noise floor, and I can use it with even IEMs. I've never yet, with any headphone or even IEM I've tried with the Master 9, have I had any issues with being able to hear the noise floor. The R-8 MKII, it also very versatile. It has 6 sets of inputs or digital inputs. That would be optical, coax, BNC, which is basically coax. You can use a regular coax cable with an RCA connection with a little adapter hooked up to the BNC input. You've got AES, which is basically a 3-pin XLR. You have USB and I2S. It has 3 sets of outputs, which would be RCA single-ended, XLR balanced, and once again the AC/SS, and that's what I have been using between the R8 and the Master 9. I did want to point out that you cannot use all 3 sets of outputs at the same time. You can use both the RCA and XLR outputs at the same time from the R8 DAC going to 2 different amps, but if you use the AC/SS, it shuts off both the RCA and the XLR. So when you're using the AC/SS, if you have the DAC hooked up to other amps, you'd have to unplug the AC/SS cables before your other 2 outputs would work. So once again, you can't use all 3 at the same time. Both units are very large. They're both approximately 17 inches square, which is a size that's full width for a full width component, and they're very deep. The shelves I have them on, I had to use, not only do I have to use 18-inch deep shelves, but I had to actually put a 1.5-inch spacer behind the shelf in the wall to allow room for the cables to connect to the back of the amp. So you basically need about 20 inches or more of shelf depth with either one of these. I think that the DAC is actually about a 1/2 inch deeper than the amp is. And the amp weighs in at about 32 pounds and the DAC at about 26 pounds. So what have I compared these to? As far as amps, since I've had this, and this is most of the amps, it's not all of them, but I've compared the Master 9 to the Wells Audio Milo, the Urzatish Bacillus Tilia, the Felix Audio Echo, the SPL Phonitor XE, the Headamp GSX Mini, the Burson Playmate 2, the Burson Fun, the Burson Conductor 3 Reference, which is a combination amp DAC. Well, I guess the Playmate 2 is also. The iFi ZenCan, the iFi ZenCan Signature, the Wayborn Preamp Plus, the Wayborn Power Amp Plus, the Wayborn Ultimator, the iFi Neo IDSD, which is an amp DAC combo, the Wells Audio Dragon, the Emotiva A100 Bass X, the Topping A50, the Singzer SA1, the iFi Zencan Signature, I think I mentioned that already, and the Hi-Fi Man EF400. Of all those amps, some of them, compared very well. I personally, in my opinion, I think the Master 9 held its own against all of those. There wasn't any one of those that I thought would make a better overall amp to use doing reviews, to review headphones, or, to use as a reference to compare other amps to. Excuse me just a second. A few of those amps did stand out, and would be amps that I would consider, possibly using in the future as a reference. The SPL Phonitor XE was very nice, had a lot of features. It had what they call the Matrix, which is a simulated, makes it sound like you're listening to speakers instead of headphones. It's mixes the two channels, and you have controls to do different things and all that. Both of the Wells Audio amps that I reviewed were very nice, and I believe the Wells Audio Milo is probably the only amp on this list, well, possibly the Emotiva A100 Bass X, that maybe had a little bit more power available, a little more clean power, but I've never run short with the Master 9. It had plenty of power. I mean, the Wells Audio Milo has incredible amounts of power, very clean power. The only thing is it only has one gain setting, and it doesn't work well for efficient headphones or IEMs. The noise floor is a little too high, where the Master 9, by being able to switch to the lower gain, you can use it with real sensitive headphones and IEMs. I'd say two of these amps maybe out-detailed the Master 9 a little bit. The Master 9 has very good detail. But the Headamp GSX Mini, when I compared the two, I think the GSX Mini, I heard just slightly more detail. Where I noticed it most was female vocals. I heard just a little bit more texture and a little bit more detail in their voices. The only problem with the Headamp GSX Mini, as far as using it as a all-around reference amp, it didn't have the number of connections, inputs, and outputs that the Master 9 has. And on high gain, the GSX Mini seemed to have about the same amount of power as the Master 9 does on low gain. It just didn't have, and I think it's rated at like 4 or maybe even 6 watts per channel, but it just didn't seem to have the overall power that the Master 9 does. Also, the Wayborn Power Amp Plus, which is it's a tube amp, and it's a transformer coupled, and I think, yeah, you can see that right behind me. It's sitting right here, which it's a really nice tube amp, and it puts out, I think, 3 watts per channel. It has pretty good power, and it, I would say it does out-detail the Master 9 slightly, and it has a little bit more depth to the sound stage. I love that amp. It's a really nice amp, but it's just not as versatile as the Master 9. It only has one set of inputs, and you just can't do it as much with it. And it's also single-ended. It doesn't have balanced inputs or balanced output, which is fine. I mean, I personally don't think tube amps need to be balanced, but if I'm reviewing a balanced DAC or that sort of thing, I want to be able to use the balanced outputs of the DAC. And, and if I've got a headphone with a balanced cable, the Master 9, I can use it without having to switch cables or whatever. So once again, the Master 9 is a little more versatile. I haven't got a chance to compare directly the Master 9 with the Hi-Fi Man EF400. The EF400 seems to be a very nice amp, also uses an R2R DAC, but I'm pretty sure, I mean, I haven't compared them directly, but jumping back and forth from one to the other, I would say the Master 9 and R8 combo as a stack is on another level. I mean, it's, you know, as nice as the F400 is, I don't think it's on the level of these. Also, I want to mention that the Burson Conductor 3, which is a combination amp and DAC, it had a similar sound to the Master 9 and R8. It's not an R2R DAC, so it doesn't have, it's not quite as warm and liquid sounding, the DAC part of it, as the R8 DAC, and but it is a warm sounding DAC. It's very detailed. It's a very nice amp. It's a Class A amp, has a lot of power. If I wanted a similar sound to the Master 9 R8 stack, but only had half enough to buy it, that would be a serious consideration. Like I said, the Burson Conductor 3 reference has sort of a similar sound. It's not quite on the level. I would say the Burson Conductor 3 takes you about 90% of the way to the Audio GD stack. Not all the way, but it gets you most of the way there for about half the price. So, and then as far as DACs, what DACs have I compared to the R8? I've compared 4 different DACs from Topping. The E30, which is a great, outstanding DAC for the price, I think $149. The Topping D50, the D70S MQA version, which is one of my favorite DACs, and I highly recommend it for the price of $650, but I think that I'm not sure if it's available right now or if it will be in the future. I think it's an issue with the DAC chips. I don't think they can get them to manufacture that. Anyway, I also compared it to the Topping D90 SE, which happens to be, according to what's the name of that, Audio Science Reviews or whatever, that say that the D90 SE is the best measuring DAC they've ever measured. They say the Audio GD R8 is terrible and it's garbage and one of the worst they've ever measured. So I really wanted to compare the two, and I'll tell you right now, in my opinion, I would choose the Audio GD R8 over the Topping D90 in a second. The D90, there's nothing wrong with it. It has outstanding detail and clarity. It sounds like a DAC that measures perfect should sound. But when I compare the two, it just doesn't have anywhere close to the musicality, the body, the warmth, to me, the R8 is just so much more pleasant and enjoyable to listen to. I just really, really like it for that reason. The R8 has a very large sound stage, very good depth, and just that warm, smooth, liquid, but yet very detailed sound. And I did want to mention that, and I don't know, I'm not sure if I realized this at the time I reviewed the R8, because just listening to it and switching back and forth between the upsampling modes, that you can either use non-upsampling or 2 times, 4 times, or 8 times upsampling, and just listening to it, I couldn't really decide which one I liked the best. But at a later time, I compared the R8 to the Denafrips Pontus 2, which I'll talk about a little more in a minute. When I compared the two, I thought the R8 was falling a little short in detail and soundstage of the Pontus, and I messed around with the oversampling and found out when comparing the two, I actually preferred the R8 in the non-oversampling mode. It actually had better detail and I think more depth to the soundstage. It just seemed a little bit better focus. I was also using the Pontus in the non-oversampling mode. So anyway, to continue the list of DACs I compared, the i5 Zen DAC, the i-Fi Zen 1 Signature, and the i-Fi Neo IDSD. Once again, the Burson Conductor 3 reference combination DAC amp, and as I mentioned a minute ago, the Denafrips Pontus 2. The only one of those DACs that I thought was on the same a close level with the R8 was the Pontus, the Denafrips Pontus 2. In fact, I slightly preferred the Pontus 2 over the R8, but they were very, very close. It took me hours of going back and forth, and I mean, I was using very good headphones, you know, like the Kennerton Thror and the Hi-Fi Man Aria and things like that, the Stealth version, and the ZMF. I didn't have the Atrium at the time, but I think I did have the, oh, what do you call it? I can't think of it right now. It was their flagship headphones, the Verite. I had the Verite open. And so, I mean, I was using very good headphones, and I still had to go back and forth many times. I mean, over hours and hours to really hear much of a difference between the Pontus 2 and the Audio GD R8. And I would say at the very end, I gave the Pontus 2 just a very slight advantage in sound quality. I mean, like 1 or 2%. They were very, very close. And I would never be able to tell the difference unless I was comparing the two against each other. The topping is a little bit smaller. I think it's just as heavy. It's really heavy. It's up like 26 pounds. And but I think the reason I preferred the Pontus 2 a little bit were the controls were easier to use. It had more buttons, and each function had its own button, where the R8 is a little bit confusing. And I don't change the settings on it much, so when I do, I usually have to go back and look at the website from Audio GD and look at the instructions. You can get the instruction manual on there, and to figure out how to change the settings, because it only has, it only has 3 buttons on it, and each button has multi-functions, and it's a little bit confusing. So anyway, I would in a second, I would choose the R8 over any of those other DACs. The only one that I think, and it's by a very small margin, that I would choose over the R8 is the Denafrips Pontus 2. But because I've already got the Master 9, I would rather have a match set and, you know, go with the Audio GD, you know, the 2 as a stack. I really do like it that way. So anyway, yeah, I've been extremely happy with this stack, enough so that, like I said, you know, I originally bought the Master 9 almost 4 years ago. I've been happy enough with the Master 9 that even though, you know, I compared all these other amps, there was none there that there were none there that I thought would make a better review amp than the Master 9. None seemed to be as versatile. Same thing with the DACs, you know. Like I said, nothing. I really like the Denafrips, but, you know, I like having the Audio GD stack. And so far I haven't found anything that I think would be better at doing what I needed to do. And that's, you know, to be able to use it with any headphone that comes along my way. I mean, I've used this amp with probably 30 different headphones over the last 4 years doing reviews, you know. And what I really like about the Master 9 is how many sets of inputs? Well, it's got 5 sets of inputs. And what's really nice is it has 2 sets of balanced RCI or XLR inputs, so I can plug in 2 balanced DACs to it at the same time and go back and forth and compare the two. And I've not seen another amp, another headphone amp that has 2 sets of balanced inputs. So I really like that. And another thing I really like about the Master 9, it has a volume memory on the inputs. You can set one input to say a volume of 25 and another input to volume of 22 or say 32, it doesn't matter. And when you go back and forth, the volume will stay the same. It doesn't, the volume doesn't follow the inputs. You can set the volume on each of the inputs separate, and when you go back and forth, toggle through the different inputs, it goes back to the volume you were using. So you can use, say I use the 2 XLR inputs to compare 2 different DACs. One is input 1 and the other is input 3. Well, I can go back and forth and balance match the 2 DACs at whatever volume level that takes, because they're usually different. And then when I go back and forth, I don't have to readjust the volume. The volume stays where I set it. So I really like that feature about the Master 9. Big part of why I've kept it as my review amp. So anyway, like I said, I have nothing bad to say about these two other than they are huge. They take up a lot of room and they're very heavy. It's not something you want to move around, and they're way too big to use on my desk to compare it to desktop amps. Like, see, that's one of the issues I've got. The Hi-Fi Man EF400. It's only got a USB input, so I can't hook it up to a CD player, which is my primary source in my rack system here. I have to use it on my desk and hook it to my computer. But the Audio GD, yeah, it has a USB input. I could do that. I could take the R-8 and the Master 9 and put them on my desk if it didn't take up my whole desk. I mean, those 2 units would literally take up half my desk, so that's not an option. So besides from being huge and being heavy, I mean, I really do like them. Got nothing bad to say and can highly recommend the 2. Price-wise, I did look it up tonight. If you go directly through Audio GD, which is in China, and you're going to pay a lot of money in shipping. I know when I ordered the Master 9, and this was 4 years ago, I think shipping was like about $130, something like that. I did get it quickly. I mean, I had the Master 9, seriously, like within, I think like 4 days to process the order, and then only like 6 days to get here. So I think it was like 10 days later after I ordered it, I had the Master 9. Came really quickly. I don't know if it's still that quick, and I'm assuming shipping is probably quite a bit more right now with fuel prices and all that. But anyway, right now you can still get the Master 9 through Audio GD Direct for $1,430 US. But of course, shipping is on top of that, and you can get the R-8 DAC for $1,780 with shipping on top of that. And like I said, they're large, they're heavy, they come in like a 2-foot square box with 2 inches of foam all the way around, and the amp's 32 pounds without the box. So I mean, in the box, I think it was like 36 pounds or something like that. So substantial shipping costs. If you don't want to order these from China, I did. I used PayPal, and everything went through okay. I didn't have any problems. But you can now get them from Underwood Hi-Fi, which is in the United States. And I believe Underwood Hi-Fi is set up to do warranty repairs in the U.S., so you don't have to ship it back to China for a warranty repair. So that's a big deal right there. But their prices are a little higher, but you're going to save a huge amount on shipping. So anyway, I just looked it up. Underwood Hi-Fi is selling the Master 9 for $21.99 and the R-8 DAC for $19.99, both in US dollars. Like I said, higher price, but you're going to save a lot in shipping, and the possibility of you have a problem getting warranty repairs without having to ship it back to China at your cost. So anyway, the 2 are great. They make a great stack. I haven't heard anything yet that I think is substantially better in any way. like I said, some of these other amps, some of these other DACs are great, but overall, I've been extremely happy with these, and I think I will continue to use the Master 9 and R-8 MKII DAC stack as my reference for quite a while, unless something better comes along. So I guess if you're a manufacturer and you think you've got something that's better, feel free to send it in, and I'll give it a fair review, and maybe I'll change my mind. So anyway, once again, this is William from the Headphone Experience. If this video has helped you, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already, and you're all welcome to join us at the Headphone Experience on Facebook. We are up somewhere around over 18.2 thousand members. We continue to grow over there, and I just wanted to mention I've been working on my full review of the Hi-Fi stack, the what's it called, the Hi-Fi 1 Signature DAC. I think those are up, yeah, those are right up here behind me next to the Audio GD, and the Signature Zencan, which is the Hi-Fi version, Hi-Fi Man version, that has a button that's tunes it a little bit, EQs it a little bit, specifically for Hi-Fi Man headphones. And those are great. I just been really busy and haven't had a chance to get my full review done on that. I've been working on it for a couple weeks, but had a lot of distractions and haven't put a video out in about 10 days, so I thought I'd throw this kind of a side thing in tonight. I've been thinking about it for a while and wanted to let people know how I noticed it had been a year since I've had the R8, and wanted to do a review of the stack. So this is it, and I hope this helped you, and I'm going to wrap this up. This is getting pretty long, so thanks for watching my video.